In Idols, a companion volume to the best-selling Dharma, India's fastest-selling author Amish offers insights on the philosophy and history of idol worship. Co-written with his sister Bhavna Roy, the book is both informative and refreshing. The authors join our executive editor Rashmi Menon in conversation.
Hello and welcome. I'm here with two powerhouse writers, Amish Tripathi and Bhavna Roy, co-authors of the bestsellers Dharma and Idols. Welcome, Bhavna and Amish, and thank you for being with us on World Book Day.
Thanks, Rashmi. Absolute pleasure being here on World Book Day, and hope you reach out to more and more readers, and even more of them buy our books.
Thank you, Rashmi.
No such thing as too much marketing.
Absolutely, completely agree there. So, in this session, inspired by the widespread idea of seeking spirituality in today's busy, chaotic context, I'd like to ask you both a few questions to get a wider, more insightful understanding on the subject. So, my questions are to both of you. Perhaps for my first question, Amish can begin and Bhavna can take over. Is that all right?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So, is being spiritual a state of mind, a way of life, or a response mechanism to life's pressures?
I think it's a bit of all three, right? Um, Regrettably, what has happened in the modern day is that spirituality and spirituality has almost been exited out of our education system. And philosophy has been reduced to one subject that is taught in the humanities stream, almost in a derisory tone, that your marks are so bad, your IQ is so low, you couldn't get into the really serious subjects. Chalo yaar philosophy karke graduate kar lo, which is very sad. That wasn't the way our ancients looked at philosophy. And I'm not just talking about the ancient Indians, ancients across the world. Philosophy was a part of was a subject that everyone had to learn, because philosophy and spirituality is about learning how to live, right? The hard subjects, sciences, commerce, economics, they teach you your vocation. They teach you how to earn money. Philosophy and spirituality teaches you how to live your life, how to make choices.
Right.
Which answers the other two options also in any case, because your life often is not just about what you do. It's also about how you react to what happens to you. Uh, Lord Ram and Ravan both suffered greatly. Both suffered grief. Both suffered misfortunes in life. But how they reacted to their misfortunes ended up defining their life. Lord Ram's reaction was that the more he suffered, the more noble he would behave, right? And that defined the example that he set up. Whereas Ravan's reaction was, the world hurt me, I'll freaking burn everything down. Just rage and anger. Uh, that defined his life. What path is better. That's essentially what spirituality is about. Calming your mind, learning lessons, and applying that in your life. It's not just something in your for mental calisthenics. You apply that to your choices in life so that you can lead a better life. Giri?
Kashmi, I completely agree with him. Spirit and matter have a bit of a choli daman kind of a relationship. A fortnight back, Mr. V. Higgs finally departed, the person who discovered the God particle. He's on his way to God as we speak. And he talked about, forces of energy like electrons and quarks, reaching a certain Higgs field where they acquire mass and become matter. So how do you separate the material from the spiritual? Like I said, a bit of a choli daman ka saath.
I love the Choli Daman analogy. Very interesting. So, to move on, what was the start of your spiritual journeys? I mean, for those wishing to discover more for themselves in terms of spiritual knowledge or practices, what would you both recommend as some starting points?
Look, for us, it was a part of growing up. Um, our paternal grandfather was a Pandit in Varanasi. He was at Vishwanath Ji. Pandit Vishwanath ji, and he used to teach at BHU as well, Banaras Hindu University. We grew up in that atmosphere. Our education system, as you know, teaches us very little of our traditions. Regrettably, we still haven't decolonized our education system. It's designed to make Englishmen out of us, sadly. So it was more about what we learned at home for us. And since we grew up with all of this, and even our maternal grandmother was also a teacher, so the entire atmosphere in our home was dharmic, was traditional. But if you read our ancient scriptures, they actually encourage questioning. There's no concept of blasphemy in the ancient dharmic religions, at least Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism. There's no concept of blasphemy. You're supposed to question, and as you question, you learn things in a deeper way, and that our upbringing truly helped us in that. And what I think we are trying to do is not every family is as lucky as we are. Not everyone has the good fortune of learning at home. And like I said, sadly, our education system teaches very little of. We somehow make it, oh, it is about religion. No, it's not. The at least the dharmic approach is not about faith. It actually teaches you how to live better. These are life skills for everyone. It should be taught to everyone. Yoga may have Hindu Buddhist roots, but it's good for you, so learn it. It doesn't matter what and no one's asking you to convert your religion, right? But yoga is good for you, learn it. It's the same way with these spiritual lessons. Sadly, our education system doesn't teach that, and what we try and do is through our books make it at least in a way a beginner's guide to these concepts, to dharma, to idol worshipping, and we'll cover many other concepts as well.
I think you're feeling a big gap there.
We are making a very small contribution to a culture that we are very, very proud of. There's something I want to speak of about the marriage between traditions and liberalism, but first I'll wait for Didi to give your insight, and then I'll tell you.
Sure.
Rashmi, you asked about where, Amish and my spiritual journey began. Rightly so, he spoke about our family. And, my father was one of 8 brothers and sisters. And I had 5 buas. We've lost 2 of them, the eldest, Dr. Bua, and the second youngest, Hem Bua. I was 2 years old. Amish, of course, wasn't around. He was just a sparkle in our parents' eyes. But I was 2 when my Hembua came down with smallpox. And, this is a very strong memory in my mind. We used to live in Ganga Mahal in Banaras. And the entire household was, just working around trying to look after Hembua. And my father, who was her eldest brother, did not know how to, kya karu, main kya karu. So he decided that every Tuesday, he would stand on his feet all night and pray to Hanumanji. And I have this image of my father standing on his, right foot, all night. As, we had one room for our little family, which was my mother, my father, and just me at the time. And every time his left foot would touch the floor, he would remonstrate himself, and say, nahi, and go back on his foot. In my mind's eye, or the heart of that 2-year-old, it was my father who cured my bua. Such is fate, And these things are in hindsight. You look at your life and you wonder where life's spiritual or philosophical journey began. It's so complex, and little experiences that dot your life begin your journey for you, even without your realizing it, or being aware of it.
Absolutely. Amish, you were saying you wanted to add something.
Yeah, about traditions and liberalism, and I lived in the UK for 4.5 years. I was a diplomat
Yes.
sometime at the, and I worked at the Indian High Commission as Minister Culture and Education there. I have traveled a great deal, but I was always an India boy. All of us were essentially a deeply Indian family. So I never lived abroad. This is the first time I lived abroad. And it was insightful in some ways because there are lots of things that we can learn from the West on what we should do. But to me, this experience also taught me what we should learn from the West or what we should not do. We always see the West as ahead of us, and they are, sadly, many people do, and they are ahead of us in some ways. There's no denying it's the most successful culture of the last 3 centuries. A lot of good things we can learn from them. Among the mistakes that they've made, what we should learn, we should not do, is the way they've destroyed all their traditions. You know, it's almost like a relentless attack on their traditions. And their belief is if you destroy traditions, you open the space for liberalism, which of course is good. Women's rights, LGBT rights, all that can only emerge in an atmosphere of liberalism. But as we can see in the West, there's an epidemic of loneliness, of decadence, of debauchery, of society is essentially collapsing in some ways. They're losing their asabya. And you have societies at the other extreme in some parts of the Middle East where traditions are strong, so which is good. Families are strong, community is strong, that is good. Excuse me, but there's no space for liberalism, no space for LGBT rights. In fact, by law, gays are supposed to be killed in many of those countries by law, right? There's no space for women's rights, right? So you have societies which are on two extremes: destroy all traditions to have liberalism, and the other extreme, keep traditions, which keeps the community strong, but no space for liberalism. Our Indian culture is one of the few cultures in which you can have both. You can keep traditions, which has tremendous value, and you can see that the problems of destroying tradition in the West. Our families can remain strong, our communities can remain strong, but our traditions are also deeply liberal, which means we can be traditional and liberal at the same time. You're not being American in fighting for women's rights. In fact, you're being truly Indian. LGBT issues, there are no problems from the ancient Indian perspective. There's no problem of blasphemy from the ancient Indian perspective. So you can be traditional and liberal at the same time. This is the beauty of the Indian way. You can have the best of both worlds. And we need to speak of this a lot more and bring those philosophies out. That's again among the things that we try and speak through our books.
That's the beauty of the Indian way and the beauty of your books too. And coming back to the books, I feel that Dharma and Idols are like a great starter pack for those wishing to deepen their spiritual understanding. Having written both Dharma and Idols, could you shed some light on how both these books can be like practical guides towards a spiritual journey?
Jay,
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. Our two books can indeed be practical guides to our spiritual journey. Really, to pin down Hinduism and talk about what it is not easy. Unlike the Abrahamic religions, which are one book, one God, one way of life. Easy, do's and the don'ts. Hinduism is amorphous. Our effort has been to, in some sense, bring it in little morsels and understandable, in an understandable package. Idols actually is just, Murti Puja is our way of life. And दिल खींचता है, दिमाग समझ नहीं पाता है क्यों कर रहे हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं. It resonates so deeply with all Indians, in fact. Even Indian Islam and Indian Christianity are really very different from the Abrahamic ways of life, in the rest of the world. Indian Christianity has a very evolved Mariamma, idol worship in the south, as well as Mount Mary in Mumbai, where we live. Indian Islam has, the Dargah and the Sufi way of life, which has its own very distinct Desi flavor. to be able to convey what idol worship really is was our goal. As for Dharma, really, the Mahabharata is, a part of the warp and weft of our way of life. It's one of our two great epics. And to be able to cull from those stories, what is good, what is bad, why is there bad and good and bad? There was good in the Kauravas, and there was, some very distinct weaknesses in the Pandavas, and yet in the Mahabharata, had the Pandavas lost, it somehow would not have felt right. Now, our effort was to examine why. Why would it not have felt right? Despite the fact that the Pandavas reach, Devalok and find the Kauravas, who are there before them. So, the complexity, to be able to reduce it to a level where it can help us wend our way through life and understand everyday living. That was our effort in Dharma. We enjoyed it immensely.
Yes, and I'm sure that all the readers are enjoying reading it too. It's such a wonderful book.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then let me ask you something about you guys. Both of you wear multiple hats successfully. And one among them is that of being cultural ambassadors of India. In that context, do you feel that Indian spirituality, which is not monolithic, which is not a monolithic concept, grounds one to learn to navigate multiple roles, challenges, and perspectives better?
Yeah, certainly, because what is interacting? What is the essential challenge of interacting with the forces of globalization? Essentially, we have to engage with people of various different cultures. And yes, at a certain level, that is about knowledge, but it's also about the attitude you approach it with.
Right.
If you have an attitude of respectful curiosity, which is what most Indians have because we are used to multiple truths. We grow up with that, right? Hindus from UP can go to a temple in Bengal and find something very different. Hindus from all across North India will go to South India and find things very different, and vice versa. And we do travel to temples across. That's what our pilgrimage networks are about. The same stories are shown differently depending on which Purana you're reading. There are so many versions of the Ramayana. So intrinsically, we learn that there are different truths, and what it engenders within us is a respectful curiosity. Hey, this is different. Let me find out more. But because if the story of Lord Karthik may be different in Tamil Nadu, there he is married. In North India, he is a bachelor, right? The
Yes.
first time I remember I went to Tamil Nadu, and I was in the fourth standard at that time. And I'd come back home. This was in a boarding school, Ashish and I had gone. And we came back and we asked Mari, you told us Lord Karthik is a bachelor. But there we are seeing he has two wives. Correct? Now imagine fourth standard, right? So we would have been 10 years old, 9, 10 years old at that time. And our mother told us beautifully that there are, Ekam Sat Viprabhavada Vadanti, truth is one, otherwise speak it as many. That is from the Rig Veda. And they have a right to their truth, you have a right to your truth. So I said, but which is the truth? Doesn't matter. They have a right to their truth. You have a right to your truth. You respect their truth, and they will respect your truth. And this is the Indian way. We behave with foreigners also intuitively that way because we've grown up with that culture. So it's about the attitude. It's very different. You find in cultures which are not used to multiple truths. So, Western liberal, for example, he will call himself liberal, but every country that he goes to, he'll try to force fit it into his own paradigm, which is why a Western liberal will do something that is so disconcerting. Like many of them justified the invasions of Libya, including liberal newspapers like the New York Times and the Economist. Apparently because the West would bring liberal democracy to Libya. They killed a few 100,000 people, destroyed their entire country. Now there are slave markets all over Libya. And for what? That we're going to improve them. And I actually had some debates with some self-declared liberals in the UK. And they said, no, the idea was right. We just implemented it badly in Libya. Like, how is this liberal? Like, because the first thought in mind was, "Tu kaun tera kaam kya? It's not your country, no? Let them run it." Right? That is true liberalism. Tu apna desh dekh. Let them figure out their own way. They'll figure it out. Right? And to Indians, respectful curiosity comes instinctively. We don't try and force fit others into our paradigm. In the West, ironically, even the liberals behave extremist in some ways because they try and force fit everyone into their paradigm. And that's not true liberalism. And these are things which I think as Indians we learn, which can help us navigate this new era of globalization, I think, a lot better, which is why Indians make great CEOs of global companies as well. We know how to navigate our way in different cultures.
Rashmi, I completely agree with Amish. You talked about us being cultural ambassadors. I strongly feel each Indian, all 1.4 billion, of us, are cultural ambassadors. And when we step outside our shores, and Indians are traveling like never before.
Yes.
We take our culture and our way of life along with us, and in little and not so little ways, we can aspire to bring back nuance and moderation and the middle ground through our ways. All of us are cultural ambassadors when we move outside our nation.
Yes, that is a very important message. Being able to see multiple truths, being able to accommodate other people's perspectives, and seeing the middle ground. And my next question is, can you shed some light on the concept of Ishta Devta? Would you say that identifying one's Ishta is one step closer to finding and feeling divinity in one's life?
Absolutely. Well, I think Didi says this beautifully with the story of Mata. Go ahead.
Rashmi, Ishta Devata is your chosen deity. And I will not just say Hinduism, in the pagan way of life, the entire world was idol worshipping once upon a time, and different deities sort of pulled different human beings in accordance with our gunas and our bhavs. And we don't understand why a certain deity pulls me, for instance. A certain other deity will pull Amish, and some other deity will pull you.
Yes.
It's a heart thing. It's not a mind thing. Our mother is a very great Mata worshipper. So was my mother-in-law. Both my mothers, I've lost my mother-in-law. Both my mothers have been great Mata lovers. Durga Ma never pulled me from the very beginning. I never tried to understand it. It was in my, in all my adult life as well as my childhood, it was Lord Shiva. Of late, I find it's Lord Krishna. Very strangely, though, I lost my husband in 2018, and he fell ill in early 2016. That was the 2-year period when Ma pulled me to her again and again and again and again. I would visit her temple, lay my fears, my dread, my desperation, my terror on her lap, cry, in her temple, cleanse myself, and come back home and engage in the battle that my husband and I were fighting at home. I lost my husband, and Ma let go of my hand. It was almost as if she felt I don't need her anymore. So for those 2.5 year period in my life, Durga Ma became my Ishta Devi. Why? I don't know. I don't try and understand, but I know she helped me walk the road in that most difficult period of my life. Such is the concept of the Ishta Devi and the Ishta Devtas. They're there when you need them, and they pull you to them.
That's so beautiful. And so, my last question for today's session, is spirituality more philosophy than practice?
No, it's both. It's very clearly both. If by philosophy you mean the modern interpretation of it, which in Hindi is often called falsafa, those are just often just mental calisthenics and debates, and finding a beautiful line that makes you smile, right? Or makes you think.
Yeah.
Um, but that's not the way the ancients saw it. The actual Sanskrit word for philosophy is darshan, right? And darshan has a much deeper meaning. It's not just philosophy, it's when you truly see the truth of what you're seeing. That's what darshan is. When you're taking darshan of Dev or Devi at a temple, you're seeing who they are. That's what darshan is. When you're taking a darshan of life, you're understanding what life is actually about, so that you can make the correct choices. Because one of the things in our way of life is the dharmic way never had this approach of man having arrogance that we will control nature, or that God has made nature as a resource for men to use, because that's another approach, that men are the greatest creation of God. That was never the approach in the dharmic religions. Men are not the greatest creation of the divine. We are just another creation. There are many others, right, who are all equal. And nature is not a resource to be exploited, it's a goddess to be worshipped, right? When you see it clearly, when you have darshan, then your practice also becomes different. And that's what makes your life different. So true spirituality is philosophy and practice together. Uh, because in life, you never, unlike, like I said, in the other philosophy where men control everything, in our way, humanity doesn't control everything. Fate will throw things at you. How you how you react to what is thrown at you is what defines your life. And how you react, if you have philosophical wisdom, if you have vivek, then you react better, and then you lead a better life. So it shouldn't be just bookish knowledge. It has to be in practice as well. It helps you make better choices. Like, and for us as a family, for example, we passed through a very difficult personal phase from 2015 onwards, still, I mean, I think just still a year and a half back, all of us. The careers of everyone kept going better and better. But in personal life, and what truly matters to us, our family, we had a lot of suffering. Ek ke baad ek, something or the other kept happening. Uh, we could have collapsed, we could have gone into depression, we could have had so many things, but we managed what there is to manage, with strength, with togetherness. And that's what actually spirituality is, when you use that philosophy to make the choices that you have to make. Life is what it is, and everyone suffers. This thing ki mere saath hi kyun ho raha hai, that is not a wise statement, because sabke saath ho raha hai. Everyone suffers. That's the nature of life. Some have more than they share, some have less than they share, but everyone goes through periods of suffering. If you have wisdom, if you have philosophy, you will handle that better. And you will handle your ups also better. So many people destroy their lives when they have too much success. They don't know how to handle it, right? You have to have that groundedness and that philosophy to handle that too. That is what spirituality is, learning how to live.
Absolutely. Walking the talk of philosophy was a given actually in the ancient world. Lord Ram went to, the Gurukul of Rishi Vashisht. Lord Krishna went to the Gurukul of Rishi Sandipani. Sita Ma went to the Gurukul of Rishi Shwetaketu. And serving the Guru, the Rishis and the Rishikas, was a part of the training. There was no academia, wasn't separated from physical seva and engendering humility through seva, through service. It was so in the ancient world, outside of India as well. It is said that in the philosophical school of Pythagoras, a student did nothing but sweep the floors of the philosophy school in the first year. And after completing the first year, if Pythagoras deemed fit, he would start introducing you to academic subjects. It was somewhere around the Renaissance, I think, in the Western world, where philosophy became a purely intellectual exercise, with Immanuel Kant talking about categorical imperatives and hypothetical imperatives, and, Hobbes wonders whether, human beings are born brutal but become good, and Rousseau is wondering whether human beings are born good and become bad. And these exercises in debate became what philosophy is all about. The Harvard Professor Emeritus Michael Sandel has begun a beautiful effort of late of trying to once again conjoin philosophy with active living. And it's a beautiful effort for the Western world. हम इंडियंस के तो रगों में है, that philosophy is not an intellectual exercise.
You can get awesome philosophical lessons even from your taxi driver in India.
Absolutely.
It's a part of our way of life, and we apply that in life. That's what makes us such a relatively very stable nation.
Yes, absolutely. Completely agree with you there. And all right, so that brings us to the end of this extremely insightful and enlightening session. But before I end, I'd like to quote a line from your latest book, Idols. Human reason has galloped ahead, leaving behind the dwarfed sapling of wonder, wisdom, and awe. The latter softens our outlook and makes life worth living, and it's a faculty that can be developed. The tools are available in the mythology and symbols bequeathed by ancient men and women. Bhavna and Amish, may your books always make us readers wonder, make us wiser, and be awed. Thank you for writing such wonderful books, and happy World Book Day to you and all our readers.
Happy World Book Day to you as well, Rashmi. Thank you so much for a wonderful interview, and through you, a happy book day to all the viewers who are watching this program.
Ditto.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rashmi.
Thank you.